morning.
Mhm.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Anne Rossley, here with Kyle Harvey, my distinguished colleague and friend. We both work at Gold Coast Office for Baird & Warner. We sell real estate in downtown Chicago, and we come to you as often as we can on Monday mornings to talk about real estate. And this is the first show for 2025. And we're going to take a look at what happened last year, right, Kyle?
We're going to take a look at what happened last year, and we're going to think 2025's got to be better.
Yes. Well, it was good for some people, depending on what your real estate goals were, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So today, folks, we're going to talk about what's, where the market was, what sold, what happened month by month in real estate. Then we're going to go and talk about, and this is my fault, I need to publicly apologize to Kyle because I screwed up her beautiful slide deck that she had all prepared about what's going to happen. And then I have a slide deck, the one where I mangled hers, where we'll talk about some of the trends. But we think you'll find it interesting. Please hang in there, watch it. And you're welcome to follow us on our YouTube channels. Please subscribe to us, follow us on social, right? So I'll get rid of our names and we're going to jump into stats here. Whoa,
Here
here we
she
go.
is.
Yeah, let's get rid of that quick. All right. As usual, folks, Kyle and I do basically downtown Chicago, which means lakefront communities, South Loop to Edgewater, and those communities immediately west, which means West Loop, Logan Square, Bucktown, Wicker Park, and we go up to Lincoln Square. So just, you can see it's kind of a wonky pink there, but you get a sense of where we work, and that's the statistical area that we're presenting to you today. First, we'll talk single family homes, houses. I'm going to get rid of our logo. All right. So Kyle, 66 homes closed last month in December, up a little, as far as Decembers go.
Not a terrible December.
Not a terrible December compared to the last few years. And January is where you see the bottom drop out.
Yeah.
Understandably so, because closings are usually 45 to 60 days beyond when it went under contract. So here's what's under contract, 45 low. It's one up from the month before.
From the year before that.
Homes for sale. Like we didn't think it could get any worse. 146 homes for sale. Yeah, you can see that, during the unicorn years, like right before and during COVID, we were up as high as 600 to give you a sense of where we've been and where we're at. And this is since 2008, what the chart looked like.
Good Lord.
I know.
Well, 2008 was the catastrophe when everything went on the market. Nothing.
Right. And so you see inventories were well up in 2008, 9, 10, 11. And then, yeah. So that translates to 1.8 months worth of inventory. Median sales price dipped a tiny bit, but I mean, basically we're holding at $1,350,000. So that's kind of where we're at. Again, though, look at this, showings per listing.
Wait, you haven't moved. Oh, there we go. Showings per listing. Good. Thank you. Showings per listing. Yeah, I know.
Strong, up 43% versus last year at this time. So I don't you think, and we'll get into this next week when we talk 2025 predictions, but I think we're if the right things hit, there's pent-up demand there.
There's not even pent-up demand. There's demand. There's just not enough properties to make people pull the trigger, but there is demand.
There is demand, right? Okay, attached. Attached means co-ops, condos, townhomes. 624 closed in December. Look how much more that was than the years before. Meaning December 2023, December 22, right? Pretty healthy.
I mean, well, go back. Now, if we look pre-COVID, it was in the 7th. So we haven't recovered from the COVID years when everything went wonky.
Right.
And the post-COVID years when interest rates rose and everything went wonky.
Can you see? I just put in the COVID years there in a light tan. Can you see that little band? Yeah.
Those are the hot COVID years.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. 573 under contract. higher than December of the last 2 years.
Mhm.
Zippity doo dah.
And higher than before.
Yeah. 1529 that were on the market. Look at that. We were as high as like 7,000 when people
Remember
first
that?
started fleeing condos.
By that. Yeah.
And there you go. There's a look at inventory, and we're the lowest by far.
Like of COVID. Yeah.
1.8 months of inventory again. And again, 4 showings per condo listing. 445.2. This is like the 4th month in a row we've been at an all-time high. Prices just keep going up on attached properties. So that's a nice positive trend. Okay, so year to date happens to also be 2024. And I changed it this month to be volume. Units were flat. So I said, like, if we look in terms of volume, $5.6 billion worth of attached properties sold. That is up 6% versus last year, which was 23% down versus the previous year. In terms of single family homes, I screwed up. This is through December. Sorry, folks. Truly, it is 12 months worth of information, 7.09 billion.
Mhm.
I think it's interesting. Look, 7 billion here, 5.6 here. We sell more condos. Oh, single family homes, but we have more units in condos. That's what I meant to say. So again, up 7% in dollars, down 23% in 23 versus 22. So
We're trying to recover. Trying.
same song we've been singing all year, right?
Mhm.
All right, this is through November.
Mhm.
This is foot traffic. You can, it's just a reminder, it's normed to January 2014. So it's an arbitrary number of the number of people who went out and looked at properties during the month of January 14. In February and March, we were over 200. In November, we were down to 112. So,
But isn't that sort of typical to get down low
yes.
towards the holidays? Yeah.
A, there's not a lot of inventory. B, everybody's thinking of doing something else, right? Holiday fun.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now talking about interest rates, folks, back up again. 6.91 was what it was on Friday for a 30-year fixed mortgage rate. But keep in mind, 7.74 is the 40-year average. So we're below that.
Yep.
2,095 is the median rent price in Chicago, up 5% versus previous year. And here's how it breaks down by bedroom. 2 bedrooms, $2,749. Now, keep in mind, this is all of Chicago,
Yeah.
all the different buildings and everything. So
We're not talking just the fancy ones in our neighborhood.
right, which we'll see in a second. But we went down one notch. We're now the 12th most expensive marketplace to rent.
Not bad.
Not bad. The Loop, and I circled the wrong one. Near North Side's more expensive. Look at me.
I was going to say, I'm a little
Look at me
surprised.
screwing that up. 30, yeah, fancy apartments, 3588 on the Near North Side. And that means
That's for
we're
2
north.
bedrooms?
Pardon?
Is it 2 bedrooms? Or 3588 or all?
That's everything.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. So that includes, studios 1s, 2s, and 3s, but it's rental and it includes all those shishi buildings, not just the condos for rent. So yeah. If you're going to live in the Near North Side, folks, you should think about owning versus renting.
Oh yeah, so
And
much.
of course, Uptown is the most inexpensive location. All right, so that's that.
But so I had a thing where we walked through the top 5 stories in real estate in 2025. Okay, so the 5th biggest story, I thought, and I want your thoughts, Anne, was tax proposals all died this year. Now, people may not remember back in March of 2024, a question about changing how property transfer taxes were organized. And they created what we called a mansion tax. And the mansion tax failed at the ballot box.
Right.
The mansion tax would have raised transfer taxes kind of significantly. If you guys watch our show, regularly back in February or March. We talked about this, and it would have been, for luxury, but now in our neighborhoods, the median sales price of
Right.
houses would have all experienced a much higher, sometimes like $25,000-$30,000 increase in transfer tax at the time of sale. So increasing the cost of sale. That failed, and failed soundly, as I understand it. What did you think of that? And along with raising the mansion tax, they would have dropped transfer taxes for lower cost properties. So what did you think?
Right. But yeah, very few that would have been in our marketplace. Yeah, I thought it was unnecessary. I thought it would have hurt the residents of Chicago. And one could argue that, oh, it's only on those who are selling, because that's who it was geared to. But it still hurts everybody, because if I'm a seller and I'm selling my mansion,
Or your house. It's not a mansion, it's a house.
you're exactly right. Because with a median sales price of $1.3 million, you're in that mansion tax zone.
Right.
And if you're going to pay $30,000 more, you're going to think about not selling, because you're at that point probably raising capital to either go to your bigger home or to downsize and retire. If the money's not there, you're not going to sell. So it bottles it up for people. And
the second one would have been, was in December, when the city council was looking at Mayor
Brandon Johnson.
Were
you trying to forget that name?
Brandon Johnson's budget. He was going to fund some of the operations through increase in real estate taxes.
Right.
And that was soundly, 50-0.
Yeah, the alderman. Yeah, they did not like that plan.
50-0 said no. I think the city of Chicago has said, you know what? No more taxes, no more real estate taxes.
Well, they're looking for the mayor to, be fiscally responsible and not increase revenue through mansion tax or through property tax. We're
all tired of taxes on real estate.
Right.
I think the city, yes, we want them to be more responsible, but also don't come to our property.
Right. Well, and here's the other thing to remember, folks. If you're renting out there, you're still involved in this issue, because your rent is based on what your landlord is being charged for property tax. And commercial buildings are charged like the highest in the country at 4%. Residential, we're pretty similar to other places, but if they raise your landlord's property tax, trust me, you're going to be having an increased rent the next year to cover his costs.
The transfer tax was also on commercial properties, not just residential properties. So that would have really impacted the commercial real estate market.
Right, which impacts us.
So that was we thought. So that tells you that there are four bigger stories.
Right, that's a biggie.
So the fourth biggest story was, and people pay attention to this. Artificial intelligence scams.
Yes.
It is incredible how sophisticated artificial intelligence is coming. They are able to do deep fake videos now. And they do that only, that's the most sophisticated scammers, and they're doing it going after the most expensive transfers, real estate transactions. But in Hong Kong, somebody lost 25 million.
Yeah.
And video. So we are likely.
That's a big story, Kyle. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just get so emotional about this. But you and I, this is just the next level from wire fraud scams, which you and I have both experienced with our clients, and it's wire fraud, AI impersonation frauds
used to support wire fraud.
Right.
So, for example, the one Anne's referring to most recently, this happened this summer, somebody used AI to impersonate a lawyer in the transaction and started to send emails to my client, pretending and sounding exactly like the lawyer to her. And
Not auditory, but the same tone of voice.
the
Yeah,
same kind of way she talks. I mean, the way she writes, it was use of AI to impersonate somebody in the transaction. Things were spelled the way she would spell it. Things were shortened the way she would shorten them. It was incredible. So people, I believe that we have gotten so successful in making transactions seamless and virtual, and we can move. We are about to go back to in-person signing. In person, I am handing you wire instructions. I am handing you. I want you to see me and hear it out of my mouth in my presence.
right.
Wire instructions. It's going to pull us back from the seamlessness because of the sophistication of the technology to fraudulently represent people. It's going to be, it's too bad.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Scammers, get to work on cancer. That's what would be helpful.
Well said. Good.
Okay, so that's
Number 3.
And listen, Anne and I and every responsible broker is going to be telling you over and over and over again, and do not roll your eyes at us. Do not roll your eyes at us. And interestingly,
You may want to, but
71% of consumers, real estate consumers, think it is the responsibility of the real estate agent to educate them on this risk. So I'm taking that really seriously, people, and I'm going to bring it up every time I see you. As soon, I mean, just all the time, because it's incredible. Okay, so enough now. Climbing down from the high horse. Okay, third most biggest story, I'm really interested in your thoughts on this, Anne, is Compass acquired Christie's Properties. 2 enormous agency brokerages have come together, both of which were enormous in Chicago, but also enormous countrywide. Thoughts?
right. It's kind of rocking the world. It's not approved yet from a, what do I want to say?
Let's put our names back up. You can have my name.
Oh, okay.
Put our names up.
Yeah. What is the department that prevents monopolies? I mean,
Department of Justice.
thank you. They have to decide that this is an okay transaction to go through because they're both so big. We anticipate it will happen. But it's another example of us going to a arm's length real estate transaction that doesn't take care of our people. Those companies are bigger, they're more techno forward and less and more teams, and they're big behemoths that care more about the bottom line than the community in which they operate. And I know that sounds really bad, but you and I work for a company that's been family run for 165, 170 years, that is so part of the fabric of Chicago, leaders in fair housing, trying to do what's right for the people. Our goodwill network and philanthropy is right at the top of what we care about. And it's a whole different way of doing business and thinking about caring for the people who are making such a huge investment in where they live and how their lives are going to be. And it makes me nervous. I don't think it's in the public's best interest to have just a few huge companies with all these.
So I look at it in 2 different ways. You just talked about what it means for the public, and I think that's the most important thing. And the second is what it means for people in the industry, agents. So let's focus on the public. I agree. So I believe that the way that the industry is largely set up, which is for agents largely work for themselves. They largely work for themselves. And so if you have a Compass person representing you as a seller, you're a seller, and there's a Compass agent, and then a at properties or Compass agent comes in and represents the buyer. They're going to represent the buyer completely, and your agent's going to represent the seller completely, because they are independent. They have their own little businesses within these businesses. So I don't think there's going to be a wink, wink, nudge, nudge necessarily. I don't think so.
Right.
Certainly not from the deeply competent people who've been doing real estate and who are completely ethical, and that's most people. I mean, it really is most people. So I am less concerned about that. Here's where I'm a little concerned, and it's just a little bit concerned. Big companies need to have rules, or and everything's laid out in a certain way, because otherwise it's chaos. You know, they can't have all these one-off things, because one-off, yeah, sure, do it this
systems, operations, right?
Otherwise it's chaos. So there are going to be experiences that feel arbitrary to a consumer, because it has to fall into, you know, you're not an exception. You've got to sort of fall into their rule. And Anne did talk about there'll be teams, and there won't be, because there's a real drive for profitability, because not only does the agent support the brokerage, but they support the shareholders.
Exactly. But let me say this, and at risk of sounding like a conspiracy theorist, I want to pull back the curtain a moment. Refkin has been pushing the Justice Department for clear cooperation.
That's where I was going to say. Clear cooperation is a real problem.
It is a huge problem. If he becomes this big monopoly, and then he gets everybody to agree that he gets to keep all of his listings within his little group, and the public at large doesn't get to see them, that is not good for our consumer.
It is terrible for the consumer. It's terrible for fair housing. It is great for the shareholders, Compass, right. But it is good for, and it's not even good for the agents of Compass. It is good for nobody except the shareholders of Compass. And,
right.
Yes, there may be one hyper rich person who wants to limit who gets to see their property. They can do that today without the need to have these private networks.
Right.
So that's the thing that this behemoth is going to go after. It's really looking for ways that shareholders make money, not sellers, not buyers, and not agents.
Right.
So then for agents, the other people impacted by this, one of the things that Anne and I really love about Baird & Warner is they look for ways to say yes to what our clients need and what we need to make our clients successful. They don't look for, well, where does it fall? Let me get out the manual and look for the rule that covers this situation. It's like, how do I say yes? How do I help you help your clients? How do I help your clients be as successful as possible? How does Baird & Warner help make this the best experience they've had in real estate? And
absolutely,
you can do that with a privately owned, family owned, 170 years now, 60 years, some ghastly number of years. They can do that. So I feel even better about being part of Baird & Warner.
Agree.
But anyway, that's a huge story. Okay, sorry. Second, I think the biggest story for 2024 is the Trump election. One, I think the markets were a little quiet in the lead up to the election because people didn't know what's going to happen, and they want to know.
And that's always typical in an election year. Yes,
typical. And two, he's calling for things that may impact, you read. So one of the things I hate about newspapers these days is every story is this could happen, not this happened. It's like, ooh, good Lord, boost our readership and get them all worked up. So I don't know what's going to happen, but he's going to have impact on the market. I'm hoping that him being coming from the real estate industry will have a positive impact on the market, that he recognizes the things that make real estate markets work great and pushes for that. But we got to see. What do you think?
No, I think that's true. He's a pro real estate president. I mean, look at his career, look at everything. So he understands he can only do so much, but he is a supporter of.
So let's see. So that's that's going to be a consequential story. There was a consequential story and big time. And then the biggest one was the NAR settlement.
Yes.
Which was big for us, real estate brokers, but has it turned out to be so big for consumers, Anne?
Unless you're buying or selling real estate, you probably don't know or care too much about this topic. It's only when you jump in feet first and need to buy and sell that you really start to learn about it. And again, you learn about it depending on how your agent presents it to you, I've learned, because in the transactions that you and I have done since August 17th, we've had varying degrees of success in working with other agents who understand it. But in a nutshell, buyers are now responsible for the compensation of their agents. They all need to have agency agreements before they look at property. And things haven't really changed too much in the bigger picture, because sellers, in my experience, are still offering or agreeing in a contract to pay the buyer compensation via a credit to the buyer at closing. But we'll see what happens long term. Do you think long term it's going to make a difference, Kyle, in how agents are paid and how they earn their money?
What I have learned over a long period of time is I'm terrible at predicting the future. I think, if anything, it's going to mean good things for the people in the industry, and it will be good for buyers and sellers in the sense that we are obligated, we in the industry are obligated to spell it all out. If you have an agent who has not spelled it all out, they're not helping you. By spelling it all out, there's just greater understanding. And when there's understanding and transparency, I think there's greater satisfaction with the service you get.
Very good point. Yes.
So I think that will assist in helping the industry, people understand the services that are being provided, what they're getting, and that the person was 100% on their side.
Well, it's going to really make sure that these agents up their game, right? We all have to show that we're worthy.
Yeah.
That we're providing the right services, that we're doing the job promptly, correctly, well. We're advocating for our clients and making them buy and sell in a good way for them.
All right. Those were the top 5 stories.
So next week, let's talk about predictions for 2025. And we'll talk about what have the trends been in Chicago real estate since 2024. Sound good?
Sounds good. Thank you.